Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Juna Jinsei. We'll be discussing her fantastic book, Underlord of the Netherworld, Legends of the Pan, Part 2. Now, that book is available through Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but listen, if you guys want to get everything that Juna has to offer, do yourself a favor and just go directly to her personal site. She has created an immense amount of work. She has 11 titles in totality, all available, again, through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly through her personal site, JunaJinsei.com. That's JunaJinsei.com. There you'll find more information on Juna herself. You'll find more information on all of the titles that she's written, as well as find hyperlinks set up to take you to the Amazon pages for purchasing. So one more time, that's JunaJinsei.com. And I will say, Juna was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. Author Reputation Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, do yourself a favor and contact ARP. And you can find out more information on them at authorreputationpress.com. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Juna, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you for being a guest. How are you?
Thank you, Benji. I appreciate it. I'm great.
Well, Juna, listen, we're very much looking forward to this, and I know we have a mountain of work to cover. But before we jump into the book, let's hold off slightly. Start by articulating to our listening audience a little bit more about yourself, please.
Well, I have a PhD in pastoral counseling psychology, and I've worked helping people through counseling and life coaching for several years. The truth is that most of my clients in the beginning were all middle-aged or older, and I was counseling them because they were suffering from devastating past traumas, even things from their childhood, which eventually began to wear them down, and they were getting sick. Like stress and anxiety can do to people, makes your high blood pressure and what overeating and causes what diabetes if you do the wrong things, and depression can lead to overindulgence. So I was trying to help people that were addicted to many things because of this, because most health ailments and chronic disease are the result of emotional problems and past traumas that turn into poor life choices. Once these poor choices are made, they're continuously repeated until they return into habits, and then they're difficult to overcome at that point. So the first book I wrote really was a manual to help in my workshops to help learners have techniques for life balance and physical and emotional stability and self-control. But then after a few years of counseling, I started helping children and young adults, which was never in my plan, but people started bringing them to me. And talk about pulling your heartstrings. I realized at that time these kids were heading down the same road as my adult clients. Some had already been extremely traumatized, but children are more resilient. They have more energy and shorter memories. They can be set in the right direction if only someone is willing to help them. So that's why I started writing fiction, because I was doing nonfiction in the beginning, but then I thought, this is an opportunity. I wanted to promote the three things I saw in all these young people who were suffering, and that was the lack of self-esteem and self-confidence, and the need to feel valued, and the formation of positive attitudes towards things in life. So that's what got me started.
Since we've already started to go down this road, let's continue to push forward a little bit more on that concept of inspiration. So we're now starting to see that transition from counseling into writing, but we haven't gotten yet to this creative writing. What transitioned, and did you always want to be a writer? Were there artists that inspired you? What, again, help us understand that transition from the self-help narrative that you started with to this completely fictional narrative that you are on now.
Well, I started thinking, if I was a child, I really wouldn't be reading nonfiction books. I didn't start doing that until I was an adult. Mm-hmm. Children like stories, and adults like stories too. They like to see themselves in characters. so I wanted to find a way to convey things that I found extremely important, and I would say psychology / philosophically, that would help people, that would inspire them, that would be kind of a guide in a way, but through storytelling. Because if you think about it, all through history, people have been using storytelling, and even in the most primitive societies, to help people understand right and wrong, and who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, and that type of thing. So I thought this would be a good method.
Listen, without further ado, Underlord of the Netherworld. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, as you were saying, the first book was the essence of Neverland, because there's three, and that was the first one, and that's where the main characters were established. And the essence of Neverland also has the name Mother, because everyone loves her, and she knows everything that's going on. She's kind of like the spirit of life on that island. And Peter had a terrible accident, and when that happened, then they lost the power of the pan, because the power of pan was a special energy that kept everything flowing in the island the way it needed to, and made life come to abundance. So the mother, who was very concerned about this and knew that she was seeing the island was starting to die, and everything was turning, the forest turned to deserts and stuff like that. So she decided to send out 4 fairies to find a child, somebody, a person that could bring back the pan. So she went ahead and sent these 4 fairies out, and then they found 4 children. Each one found a child, even though I think she was only supposed to be getting 1. She was happily pleased. And to tell you about the main 4 characters that come into the Underlord of the Netherworld, the first one was the little girl named Kusanda from South Africa, and she has the attribute of unconditional love. When she got to Neverland, Mother gifted her with the ability of understanding the thoughts and feelings of others, and also being able to share her thoughts and feelings with others, because she thought, Mother did, that she was such a loving person that she could pass that on to others naturally. The second child's name was Dobrata. He came from Kosovo, and he had the natural attribute of kindness. And he was gifted with the ability of flight, just like Peter Pan was. And Kwam Glahan was the third child. She came from Thailand. She had the attribute of unflinching courage, and she was gifted by the essence of Neverland with the ability to live above and below the sea. And Rakana was a little boy from India who had the natural attribute of innovative creativity, and he was gifted the power of communication with animals, plants, and non-sentient life forms in Neverland. So it's to help him be more creative. The one that brought Kusanda into Neverland was a little fairy called Sunny Ray, and he took her to live with the Indians. And then Kwam Glaham was brought in by Sparkle Drop, who went to live with the mer people since she could be above and below the sea. Dobrata was brought in by Dreamy Cloud, and he became a pirate, and eventually in that book he becomes the captain. And Rakana was brought in by Tinkerbell, and he went to live with the Lost Boys. So those are the 4 main characters that were brought into the second story to get it started. Did you want to know a little bit more about the storyline?
Absolutely. No. Yeah, let's go there. I have so many questions already, but yes, I'll refrain right now. Juna, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about the storyline, please.
Okay. Well, one thing I have to kind of point out is, you know how everybody said, oh, Peter Pan is a little boy that never grew up, and so many people wanted to be like Peter, but the truth is that's not the reality. The truth is that Peter was growing up too, just like these 4 children. But since they came from the planet Earth, things were very different. It's not the same here. Time is different. So Peter got to Neverland at age 5, and unfortunately his demise happened when he was 9, so already 20 years had passed. Well, the same with these children. They're growing very slowly compared to the people that live in Neverland. So it just seems like they stay children. They just stay children longer. But anyway, at the beginning of this story, there's the king and the queen, and the queen has just had twin boys. But without knowing it, she's being tricked. The midwife that helped her have the babies, she told her that one of them didn't survive. But instead, she steals him away and makes a difficult journey to the mountain cave to offer the baby as a sacrifice to the Underlord of the Netherworld in exchange for her only son, who went to see the Underlord of the Netherworld and try and make a deal with him, but he never came back. Several years passed after that, and the remaining prince turned into a fine young man who falls in love with Kusanda. It was kind of strange, him falling in love with Kusanda, because all of these special children were adopted by the king and queen at the end of the first book. So they were half brother and sister, more or less, they grew up together. In fact, since Kusanda was kind of the same age for a while and then older, she's the one that taught the prince how to read, and she took care of him when he was a small child. So it was pretty natural that he fell in love with her. She was kind of like a second mother. But unfortunately, she was in love with someone else. Around this same time, there were pirates and some lost boys that were on a ship because they were now friends, and they were sailing around to the other side of the island, diving for pearls. They wanted to get a gift for the prince because it was going to be his birthday. No one lives on the other side of the island. Since it's barren, rocky terrain, it's not very good for farming or livestock. It also is too difficult to build homes, and even if you try and fish there, the lines and the nets, they get tangled in the rocks. So everybody just stayed away from that part, but they knew that there was some good pearl diving. They had been told about it by the mer people, so they went there to see if they could get a gift. When they got there, suddenly, these Malamen showed up. No one had any idea. They didn't even know what to think. They'd never seen one before. They appeared to be some type of sea creature and were strange and frightening to look at. Their attack on the pirates was just the beginning. Now that they were aware humans may invade their territory and threaten their homes, the Malo King, he declared war on all the humans on the island. So then they started going out looking for him. To keep it interesting, I put a story inside the story because I like doing that. It's a thing I do when I write books. I try and think of more things than one story going on, kind of like when you watch some shows on TV. So anyway, Dobrata, who's the child that could fly, he is in an ethereal body, and he was given the amazing opportunity to explore other worlds and to help other races on other planets that had difficult problems. And Kusanda could help him because she had the gift of communication. So she would assist him when it was possible by communicating with these other life forms. In his vast travel, he found a planet encased in ice bubbles, which after investigating more closely, he discovered had a large population of Chakaradians. The planet was in danger from these careless, greedy men that, of course, as usual, were scheming to make more money. And unfortunately, they were causing a life-threatening situation that if it wasn't diverted, millions could die. So this was going on while the other story is going on too. So we'll have to flip back and forth because Kusanda had to go from one place to the other to help her brother, Dobrata. And then when the king found out that they were being attacked by Malamen, the little villages along the coast, he and his son had to get all the army together and go to war. And when they did this, they ended up themselves being attacked by spies who were being paid by a traitor in the country. The king had no idea who this was. But eventually it is revealed. The king barely escapes, and soon he learns he has another son. And this son, the one that had been stolen when he was a baby, had actually survived at birth. His name was Reiki, and he had been raised by the ominous Underlord. So then, now the question in the book, as the story twists and turns, it raises many questions that you have to unravel, right? Whose side is Reiki on? Is he evil as the feared spirit of the Netherworld? Will he help the Malamen defeat the humans and take over the island? And will the Mer people join in to fight against these sea creatures or stay by themselves? On the other hand, will Dobrata and Kusanda be able to find a way to save Chakaradia? Or will the corrupt politicians just cause millions to die? Oh, yes, you're just going to have to read the Underlord of the Netherworld to find out how that goes, because it's pretty long.
I absolutely love this. I've been yearning for something to really just take me out of the day-to-day monotony that has become this COVID living situation. And these books are the perfect exit strategy to just be able to journey to different realms, to different worlds, and experience all of this. This is absolutely fantastic. Now, Juna, I'm curious, right? Getting back to inspiration a little bit, I can't help but see the correlation to, of course, Peter Pan, right? And we know about Peter Pan, we know about Neverland, and That story is, of course, classic and is something that has influence in, or what seems to have influence in the first of the series, Essence of Neverland. Talk to our listening audience. What inspired you to utilize Peter Pan and that story, at least as a jumping off point to start this book?
Well, the truth is, I hate to say this, but it's true. The first thing I did was kill Peter because he couldn't be in the story, because the story isn't about Peter at all. It's about Neverland and all the wonderful things you can do in Neverland, because it is a mystical place. And, it has the mermaids and the Indians and all different kinds of creatures and fairies and spirits. So it's the perfect background to put any type of fantasy to work. And that's why I chose Neverland.
Now, I'm curious, let's analyze things that shift from the books to you as an artist, you as a writer. How do you feel your writing style has shifted and changed between each book?
Well, I don't feel like, well, let's put it this way. Nonfiction is very different to fiction. And doing nonfiction to me wasn't difficult because in my different types of line of work where I've done curriculum design and been a trainer, and I can take a whole bunch of facts and get them very well organized and put it across so that people can understand the best way possible. But when it comes to fiction, now you're using much more of your imagination. And I guess the way I do the fiction, and I always have, is I see the story in my mind like a movie. And I try and put it on paper. I try and describe it exactly as I see it, which then I have to go back and edit a bunch of stuff because I get way too detailed. Like they place the dish 1 inch from the paper. So I go, oh, take that out. Don't need that in there. But I do something that I call vomiting on the page. I have all these ideas, and I just type it all up, the complete story, as much as I can. And, of course, I work a job just like everybody. I do 8 to 10 hours a day at another job. So I have a writing discipline, which starts generally between 5 and 7 in the morning, and on the weekends when I can fit it in. So that's pretty much how I do my writing. But after I get it all onto the page, then I go back and I shuffle it like cards so that the chapters will be more interesting. So I can take the person's thought from one place into another, and then around again to another place. So it turns in more of a page turner. You don't know what's going to happen next. Everything's like, what's going to happen next? Oh, now we're talking about this again. I like doing that because I like it when people do it to me. So maybe it's because of the way I like seeing movies, the way I like reading this type of book, that I was inspired to do it that way. And that's pretty much how I get it all out on the paper.
Fantastic. Being an artist myself, I would be doing my listening audience a huge disservice if I didn't ask this next question. Now, you're someone that, again, has written multiple books, but has also gone through the gauntlet of getting the books published. Now, anybody that's been through the process understands that writing is only half the battle, right? Getting it published is a whole endeavor in and of itself. But I'd love to have this moment. I'd love to take this opportunity to pick your brain a bit. Any words of wisdom, Juna, that you'd be able to offer to our listening audience, any new writer that's out there listening in right now, what words of advice would you be able to give them?
I would say if you need to be self-published, then check out all the companies, look for the best one that offers the most for your money. Tell all your friends and your colleagues that you work with, your family, to read what you've written and to write honest reviews. You want as many reviews as possible. That's extremely important, no matter what you're writing about. And just keep writing, because the more books you have under your belt, the more people are going to start noticing you. If you write one book, it'll probably be lost forever. You know how many millions of books are out there? But if you keep writing, and now suddenly you have a lot. It's like I just recently went to visit the house of Stephen King. I love him. I love his works. I was given a list of all the books he did. I was shocked. I never knew he did all those books. You know, there's certain ones we all know about, like Carrie and Misery, but man, it's vast. So if you're going to write, keep writing, unless you're doing something so specific for maybe something in the business world that you could only do one book to make it perfect. If you're doing like fiction, you need to have several series and just as many books as you can under your belt so that people will start realizing you're there and that your books are good. And if you can at all afford it, do try and get someone that will edit your work. I don't mean rewrite it. I mean, check it. It's not, to me, I don't know about you, but for me, I don't like people trying to change what I have to say. But if they want to correct the spelling, I'm very thankful.
Listen, so much more can be said. Nothing more is going to be said. Okay, listen, we are out of time. And as much as I'd love to sit here and talk to Juna for hours, because this is all fascinating to me, the onus is on you now. Okay, we don't want to give too much away. We've covered 2 books in the canon that she has, but like I said, there's 11 titles in totality. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, JunaJinsei.com are the places you have to go to purchase them all. Underlord of the Netherworld is the one that we focused on today, but remember, that is only part 2 in the series, so there's so much more to be gained, and Juna Jinsei is the author you have to thank for bringing it to your table. Juna, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benji. It's been my pleasure.